Hello and welcome everybody to another 1000 Best TV video. My name is Philip and I welcome you from Lanzarote. I am here, you can see it in front of me, for the new Yamaha MT-09. So far I have not necessarily been the biggest fan of the MT-09, but now that might change and I will tell you why in a moment. So welcome back everybody, and as you can see I am smiling. Why am I smiling? It wasn't always like this when I rode the Yamaha MT-09, but this time it is because Yamaha has done so much more than you might think for the 4th generation or 2024 generation that is here before me. There are several points where the bike has changed a lot and I would like to go into that a little bit. Now, there are 3 points in particular. The first is ergonomics. That is probably the most important aspect. The second is the looks. Now we suddenly have a nice light mask and so on. The third is the finish and the features. Let's examine them one by one. The new MT-09 is still a real MT-09 because the engine has not changed. We still have the well-known CP3 engine, 890cc, 119 horsepower, 93 Newton meters of torque, and it rides really well. But you already know that because, as I said, the engine has not changed. Yes, the engine is Euro 5 compliant and also Euro 5 Plus compliant. And very importantly, because some of you have asked me, the engine has a noise level of 94 dB in the type approval certificate, which means that the bike is also suitable for regions where on some roads you cannot ride motorbikes with dB values above 95, as is the case in Austria. What is very important about this bike, as I have already said, what has changed apart from the design, which I will return to later, is the ergonomics. With the change in ergonomics, new visual characteristics have also been developed. Regarding the ergonomics, it is very important to understand that the Yamaha MT-09 has always been a mix between a naked and a supermoto. As Yamaha themselves said, they wanted to build a road bike that would allow a somewhat upright riding position with a straight torso, the handlebars high, close up to the rider, and a relaxed knee angle. Yamaha deviated somewhat from this basic setup with the 4th generation. The MT-09 has become more of a true naked bike. Why? The rider's triangle, consisting of handlebars, seat position, and foot pegs, has changed. The handlebars are now 3.5 centimeters lower and set back 1.5 centimeters, i.e. closer to the rider. The foot pegs are 1 centimeter higher and 3 centimeters further back. The riding position has not changed, except that we now have a 2-piece seat, whereas before it was 1 piece. And the angle of the seat has also changed slightly, it is now flatter. The seat has become 12 millimeters narrower, which means that although the seat height of 825 millimeters has remained the same, it is now easier to touch the ground. The whole thing has an incredible effect, and I have to say that I was positively surprised because, as I said at the beginning, I have not always been a big fan of the Yamaha MT-09. This is due to several factors, and I think something happened that I never thought would happen. That some Japanese engineer saw my videos, read my tests on the last 3 generations of the MT-09 and said to himself, okay, now we will do just what this cool Austrian guy from Vienna, who always has something to criticize about this bike, wants. We'll improve it and then we'll see if he still criticizes it. And honestly, they have done exactly what I have always criticized. They have changed the riding position, they have slightly changed the engine setting, they have adapted the look, and suddenly the bike we have here now is such that we can say it's really cool, really good as well. And before we get into the details, I'll say one thing. Those who have already ordered an MT-09 or those who have already signed the purchase contract and are already waiting for the bike to arrive have reason to be more enthusiastic. I'll tell you right now, you have hit the nail on the head because all the changes Yamaha has made to this facelift, so to speak, have been a direct hit. Now back to the ergonomics. What happened? Handlebars down, a bit back, foot pegs up, a bit back, which means I have more pressure on the front tire, and I don't mean air pressure. More pressure on the front tire gives me better feedback. Now what I used to complain about with the MT-09 was that I now have an incredibly powerful CP3 engine, but when I really opened the throttle, when I went full throttle, the front end always got a bit light, or did so relatively quickly. In other words, the front end always wanted to stay on the rear wheel, which is nice and fun. But if you ride into the corners a little too fast, you simply lose contact with the front wheel, you lose feedback, and then you have to slow down forcibly. Now Yamaha has finally cut the bike in the direction of a naked so that you simply have more feeling with the front wheel. And really, it was a golden stroke in the development. I told myself that there's always a conflict between stability and agility, and I don't know how Yamaha managed that, but the new MT-09 has not lost agility whatsoever. The bike is as agile as its predecessor, but the feedback is much more present. I don't know how they managed to do it, because they say you have to choose between stability or agility. With this bike, you have both, and a lot of it. Now there has never been an MT-09 as stable as this one, and I don't think there have been many MT-09s that ride more agile. What's the reason? They have changed the rake a bit, which means the fork is slightly more sloping. They have made the steering head and chassis a bit softer, so to speak, and they've also lowered the suspension a bit. As a result of the changes, the Kayaba 41mm upside down fork has been made a little stiffer at the front, both in terms of spring and basic setting. The rear shock has also been improved. This means we have a slightly harder suspension combined with a sportier riding position, which means you can now feel what the front does a lot more, even at high speeds. And if I feel the front wheel well, automatically I feel better in the saddle and I can ride the bike faster and sportier. So for me, Yamaha really hit the mark. The next point, which has been solved excellently on the bike, I have already mentioned, the looks. I mean, you can really argue about the looks of the last 3 generations of the MT-09. I found the generation particularly ugly with that Cyclops-like appearance. It was not for me. And especially the horn position was horrible. Now they have finally managed to fit a nice headlight. They have also hidden the horn well so that you can't see it. In addition to these visual aspects, the tank had to be adapted a bit because of the ergonomics. This was done in order to have a 14 liters tank. The tank has been lowered by 30mm and made flatter, but it is 6 centimeters wider. And these 6 centimeters wide are very far apart, so at first you think you have a very bulky bike underneath you, but the tank is extremely narrow. You still have a very good knee angle, and as I said, the tank capacity of 14 liters has been maintained. And now it looks very masculine. The fact that the bike is a bit wider, so to speak, might not appeal to everyone though. Some might prefer a more graceful line, but I think it's a positive aspect in terms of riding position. And if I can keep 14 liters of fuel in the tank, I will gladly accept that. The tank is also changed, you can see it a bit here. They have changed the air intake so that the intake noise is more present. Yamaha's idea is to have 2 acoustic elements. You sit here and the intake noise comes from here. And then there is the exhaust, which is actually unchanged from its predecessor. The whole of the exhaust does not go upwards but downwards. In other words, it goes downwards and is reflected upwards. This means that when you ride the MT-09, you are in a sonorous bubble where you can hear the intake and exhaust noises very well. For me, the acoustic feedback is extremely important when I ride a bike. These 2 elements ensure that the sound doesn't spread evenly, but really gets to where the rider is. And they have solved this problem very well. For the first time, I also like the sound. A very good solution. Also new is the connectivity and the features. And I must say that also in this case, Yamaha did 100% what I have always wanted. So I thank you, Yamaha, and I think for many others out there, you made the right decision. Now we have a big 5-inch TFT screen and completely new controls on the left side with a 5-way joystick, up, down, right, left, and center. And then there is a cruise control integrated into the part and a new indicator. The new indicator has a similar function to that of some cars. If you press it lightly, it flashes 3 times and turns off automatically. Unfortunately, this is the only thing that did not work well, because it's a bit fiddly to use, and above all, finding the point at which to press firmly or press lightly is a bit tricky, and it's no longer enough to press in the middle to turn the indicator off. Now you have to press hard in the direction of the indicator you are using. If you want to turn left, you have to press left, and then you cannot press in the middle of the joystick to turn off the indicator. You have to press left again. But otherwise, as I said, the new TFT screen is very nice. There are different display modes, 4 in total. We have different riding modes. We still have the full electronic package on this bike, which means a 6-axis IMU. So pretty much all the electronics on this bike act according to the lean angle and of course measure everything at all times. Very good, I must say, plus they fitted the anti-hopping clutch as standard. There are 3 riding modes plus 2 customizable ones. I can change every single riding mode, even the defaults, Sport, Rain and Street. I can also assign Custom 1 and Custom 2 or Individual 1 and Individual 2 modes, and in this mode, I can not only adjust throttle response, but also all the other factors, including traction control and so on. In other words, I can really customize the bike to suit my riding style. I have to admit that today I had more fun switching everything off. It works very well, it's a bit tedious, but it works, and unfortunately you cannot turn everything off while riding. You have to stop and then turn every setting off. But if you do that, this beast really moves mercilessly. I had a lot of fun riding today because in second gear, I felt like on the exit of every corner, the bike wants to wheelie. Also, Yamaha has finally solved the third point I have always criticized, the throttle response. The MT-09 often ruined my line because I was already riding in the strongest mode, mode A or mode 1, which is the most aggressive throttle response you can have, and it was always way too aggressive. It is still by far the most aggressive mode, but they have softened it to such an extent that I would say you can enjoy it much more now. Personally though, I still prefer to use level 2 of the 4, which allows me to have all the power, but with a slightly softer response. That means you can whiz around like crazy with the bike, but you have a lot more feedback from the front. You have a lot more stability, which is now intrinsic to the bike. You can feel what it's doing from the rear, you can feel what it's doing from the front. You have this sound that roars towards you. All in all, you get on the seat, you go for a ride, and you have a huge smile on your face at all times. Incidentally, something has also changed in terms of the brakes, as all that power also has to be tamed. Not much has changed in the basic configuration. So we have a 300mm disc at the front, the calipers are the usual 4-piston, but what's new is that we fitted a 16mm radial master cylinder from Ramro. And I have to be honest, compared to the old SP, I don't notice any difference. Speaking of SP, yes, there will also be another SP version of this Yamaha MT-09, which will be available from June, I'm told, while the base version of this MT-09 will be available from April. What else will be different about the SP? There will be a dedicated riding mode for track use, the fork is differently coated, still Kayaba, and at the rear there is the Öhlins shock, and at the front we will have Brembo Stilema brake calipers instead of Yamaha calipers. Otherwise, I have to say that from my point of view, after riding the MT-09 for about 230 kilometers today, you don't have to buy the SP. This has been the most frequent question you have asked me. Quite frankly, I say it is not necessary. I think the new MT-09 in this basic version, as it is in front of me, really appeals to many riders. The suspension of the bike has improved, the stability has improved, the agility has not suffered. In fact, it is at the same level. The features are better and more. The issue with the controls has been solved in an ingenious way. It's really the first time I was able to use the Yamaha controls almost blind. Speaking of which, I forgot to mention, you can now also display a Garmin navigation map on the TFT screen. I hope they integrate Kalimoto again, because we use it a lot and it works really well. Wait, I forgot something. Tires. Every bike is only as good as the tires it fits, and Yamaha didn't skimp on that. They fitted the new Bridgestone S23 tire, but that's not all. Bridgestone developed their own tire especially for this bike, the S23M. It was built especially for this bike to further emphasize the basic characteristics of this bike, and I must say that it is a really good tire. A question that also came from you, how many windshields are there for sale? Now there are 3 different Yamaha windshields straight from the original accessories catalog. A small one, a medium one, and a tall one. Now there are also many other accessories like some kind of hand guards and so on, This way you can really customize the bike to your liking. Another nice thing to mention is that the foot pegs can be adjusted in two positions, one lower and one upper. The brake pedal and shift pedal have also been improved and are now made of forged aluminum. You can also change the handlebar position, but I didn't do that. The risers are obviously much shorter than the old ones. All in all, I have to say, I think I've said it all, that the Yamaha MT-09 is really, really cool. I don't say that often or easily, but in this case, it really is deserved. The bike is really, really a sight. And the best part, and now you'll think I'm a telemarketer, but the price of this bike is only £10,100 in the UK and $10,600 in the US. And to be honest, at the moment, I can't think of a bike where you can get so much performance, so many features, and now also a nice look for this price. For me, therefore, it is the absolute winner in value for money at the moment. It is available in 3 colors. Here we see the grey with these turquoise wheels. It's also available in typical Yamaha blue and in an all black color, techno black I think it's called, which would be my choice. The look of the bike is really aggressive, just the way it rides. Good job from Yamaha. I have to be honest, and you may have noticed, I am really, really excited about this bike. I would never have said that at the beginning of the presentation. Now, I rode 230 kilometers and I was smiling almost the whole time. What else can I say? There was another question which now comes to mind. I was asked if owners of the old MT-09 should now upgrade to the new one, which is a very difficult question. Why? Well, the basic character of the bike has changed a bit, I said. The old MT-09 was more of a fun bike, now it's more of a naked bike. That is, if I want more stability on the front wheel without sacrificing agility, then I recommend switching to the new bike. If you don't mind a little less stability, then you can safely use the old one, because as I said, not much has changed in terms of the engine. The features are obviously better on the new one and the handling is much better as well. So in my opinion, the look of the new one is also much better. So in my opinion, this one is just better in every respect. In this regard, anyone who wants to do this, who wants to change, is obviously invited to do so. Now, it is really worth it. I really think it is worth it. I think I've said it all now about the Yamaha MT-09. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so I can tell you about the new Yamaha models or other models in the future. And on that note, thanks for following along. I hope it was informative enough. And now that the rain has passed, I can go and grab some dinner. Thanks for watching. Take care. Goodbye and see you next time.